It's a fact. Some hunting rifle designs are just better than others, but some rifles are a better value even if they do lack some design features. To make things even more confusing, some rifles have a great design and are sold at a relatively fair price point, but they might suffer from some quality issues. In this video, I'll rate the current state of rifle manufacturing as of September 2025, but be mindful that I'm mainly focusing on design elements that affect function and reliability. But I'm also considering the value of a product at its particular price point. Of course, there'll always be those very expensive rifles on the market that are just riddled with quality control issues, and unfortunately, I'll address that as well. This isn't a complete list in this video. I'm only commenting on the current production hunting rifles that I've personally had exposure to. So sit back and relax while I piss off every internet fanboy and trigger every media shill in the industry. All right, to start this video off, I'm going to reveal the best current hunting rifle manufacturer and the worst one. This way, we have a baseline to compare the other rifle manufacturers to. The worst rifle manufacturer right now hasn't changed their way in almost 25 years. And most of you have probably guessed it's Remington. If you want to get technical, Remington has slowly gone downhill since DuPont sold it. When Remington's new ownership promised us better quality in 2021, I was really pulling for Big Green, but that turned out to be a pipe dream. Remington quality might be worse now than it was before. I got to handle and shoot a new Model 700, and the action was just very gritty, and it had very poor fit and finish. You know, even the new Fieldmaster shotgun is turning out to be a real jam-o-matic like the old 870 was. Even the guns that they send out to influencers to test break. And the 783 is just a complete dumpster fire, so stay away from Remington. The best hunting rifle out right now is made by Parkwest Arms. I'm going to put them in the top tier up here. Parkwest Arms doesn't buy barreled actions or receivers from a third party and put them into a fancy stock. They manufacture everything from the ground up, even making their own receivers. And the receivers are patterned after the controlled round feed Model 70, but the quality and attention to detail is light years beyond a Model 70. The woodwork is well beyond what RIGBY and Mauser offer, in my opinion, and the Parkwest is smoother and more accurate than those rifles. If you want to spend a lot of money on a perfect classic hunting rifle, Parkwest has that. Even though they'll cost you $8,000 or more, Parkwest still has value. So for the remainder of this video, every manufacturer is somewhere between these two extremes. Next is Bergara. Start over here at the beginning. And I'm going to put Bergara in the would buy category or would buy tier. The Bergara B14 is basically a better Remington 700 for the same price. Bergara makes great barrels, they have good triggers, and they're an all-around great value for the price. I shot a B14 Ridge chambered in 7mm 08, and it felt great and performed reasonably well. I mean, it shot sub MOA. I like the Ridge model because it has a hinged floor plate instead of a detachable magazine, which is what most serious hunters prefer. But with the B14, I'm not really fond of the extractor design, but it is better than a Remington 700 thumbnail extractor. But like all manufacturers in our post-COVID world, quality has declined some at Bergara, but just about everybody's experiencing that right now. Now, what to next? Now let's discuss MOSSBERG. Now, the MOSSBERG Patriot is just a piece of crap in my opinion, and I don't know how to word that any differently. Even if that rifle sold for $50, it isn't worth it in my opinion. I kind of feel sorry for the employees at MOSSBERG because they have to go around to all these influencers and pretend that their rifles are good quality. My buddy bought a Patriot for his son to shoot pigs with, and that gun won't shoot better than 5 MOA, even with the best hand loads. But accuracy issues aside on that rifle, they do rust, they feed and extract like crap, they're roughly finished, they have a plastic magazine box, and they have a pretty bad stock in my opinion as well. MOSSBERG definitely belongs in the stay away tier. And next, everybody always wants my opinion on Winchester because you know that when I'm out hunting, it's usually with a Model 70, whether it's a pre-64 or post-64 or a new one. So everybody always wants my opinion on Winchester. So let's get that out of the way first. Except for a hiccup in 1964, Winchester definitely did things right for a long time, especially when it came to quality. I mean, even the old push feed Winchester Model 70s were made with very high quality. So even today, you know, Winchester has some of the best designs in the industry. In fact, every top of the line custom controlled round feed hunting rifle today copies a Model 70 action. When Winchester production moved to South Carolina and then Portugal, those were some of the best value rifles ever made. You know, a lot of people don't realize this. Even when the Model 70 production moved to Portugal, they were still using parts from the FN factory in South Carolina. But after Winchester stopped sourcing parts from South Carolina, especially those awesome FN made barrels, quality really started waning. If you stick a bore scope down your brand new Model 70 today, then you might see a gouged up throat or a bad crown. But for the price, you still can't beat the features and the reliability of a Model 70. Now the Winchester XPR is kind of becoming famous for poor accuracy, feeding and extraction issues. You know, I just think something bad is going on in Winchester's Portugal plant right now that really needs to be addressed. I still think a Model 70 is a good buy, and I'd still buy one, but I wouldn't touch an XPR right now. I hate to do this because I think the Model 70 is the perfect hunting rifle, but Winchester is going in the needs to improve category right now because they really need to figure out their quality issues at the Portugal plant. And I think that brings us into a natural progression to Browning. Because FN owns both Winchester and Browning, but they're operated as two different entities. Winchester bolt guns are currently being made in Portugal, and Browning bolt action rifles are currently made in Japan at the Morocco plant. Quality in the Morocco plant is currently much better than quality at the Portugal plant. And this is obvious when you compare the quality of an XPR to the quality of a Browning X-Bolt or a T-Bolt. You know, when you buy a mass-produced rifle off the rack at Cabela's or Sportsman's Warehouse, Browning just might be the best rifle on that rack from a quality standpoint. Although I'm not a fan of detachable magazines on my hunting rifles, the X-Bolt magazines are totally flush mounted and they're ultra reliable. I love the bolt throw. I love the M16 style extractor. I love the bolt override button so you could load and unload the rifle with the safety on. So, I'm putting Browning in the doing things right tier because I really think they are. And I think we should do Winchester's biggest rival next, and that would be Ruger. The Ruger American was an absolute train wreck, so they tried to improve it with the Ruger American Gen 2. And I'll admit it, the Generation 2 does have a better safety, and it seems to have a better barrel, so the accuracy issues with the Generation 1 seem to have been solved for the most part. But guess what? The Gen 2 still has feeding issues, and reliability is the most important metric to me in a hunting rifle, and the Ruger American Generation 2 just fails in that regard. The Gen 2 also probably has the ugliest stock in production rifle history. I mean, I'd be embarrassed to carry that damn rifle around because it's so ugly. Now, let's talk about the M77 Hawkeye. Ruger has a history of coming up with great designs and just ruining them in a quest to make more money selling proprietary products. The proprietary ring design on the M77 just sucks. And the way Ruger rings mount on the receiver never properly align the scope with the barrel. Even aggressive lapping of the rings can't get a scope right on most of the M77s I've mounted scopes on. The Hawkeye African could have been the best-selling safari rifle ever made, but Ruger decided to only chamber it in their own proprietary cartridges. Ruger kind of has a way of turning gold into shit, so I think I'm going to put them in the needs to improve tier. Now, let's give RIGBY an assessment. Cover your ears because I'm about to make burgers with a sacred cow. Your RIGBY bolt-action rifle is just a Mauser 98 barreled action made in Germany, then sent to England and fitted with a really nice piece of wood. That's all. That's all it is. And it's much more expensive than a Mauser 98, even though it is a Mauser 98. Basically, you're paying an extra $6,000 for the RIGBY name, and that's it. Also consider this. I've held 5 brand new RIGBY rifles, and I've seen many better custom rifles for a much cheaper price, just being honest here. In fact, I think the Parkwest rifles that I've handled were nicer and much cheaper than a RIGBY. But to RIGBY's credit, RIGBY does not sell budget crappy rifles. Every single RIGBY rifle I've ever seen was beautiful and ready to use right out of the box. Because of the high quality of the rifle and the RIGBY name, they hold their value extremely well on the market. So I think I'm going to put RIGBY in the doing things right category, because if for nothing else, they've maintained the integrity of the company name. Now, I think we should swing the pendulum the other way and talk about Christensen arms. I remember peeking inside those glorious big glass cases on display at Shields and seeing those badass carbon fiber wonders inside that glass. You know, I wanted one bad, but The price tag was $2,500 at the time, and that's when I can get 3 Model 70s for that price. Then people actually started buying the Christensen arm rifles and using them, and in the end, I was glad I never purchased one for myself. Accuracy issues, poorly cut chambers, and feeding issues made many owners go back to using their X-bolts and Tikkas. The used rifle racks at Shields are full of Christensen arm returns. Christensen arms actually inspired this video because last week I handled a brand new Mesa. The forend was making contact with the barrel and the action was very stiff and gritty. Christensen arms does make a beautiful rifle, but the experience stops right there. I'm sorry, but I'm putting Christensen arms in the stay away category. And let's stick with the C's here and go with CVA next. CVA is the same company as Bergara, so you're going to get a decent barrel that should shoot decently well. CVA sells budget firearms, and honestly, they're pretty well regarded in that category. The CVA Cascade is known for accuracy with its Bergara barrel, but the action is different. It's a 3-lug design with a short bolt throw. Be mindful that the cheap price is achieved by giving you a cheap stock and a plastic trigger guard and bottom metal. But the CVA Cascade is more reliable than a MOSSBERG or a Savage at this price point. CVA also makes excellent single-shot rifles for places that have a primitive rifle season. My CVA Scout and 35 Whelen is my most accurate single-shot rifle. It shoots way better than my Ruger No. 1, and I only paid $400 for it. Because of the value that CVA offers, I'd leave them right here in the would buy category. You know, I understand that some people have a very limited budget, and I think CVA delivers to that type of person. Let's go back to the beginning here, and next, let's talk about Blaser for a minute. If you hunt Africa, especially if you hunt dangerous game in Africa, the most controversial rifle right now is the Blaser R8. The R8 is a straight pull takedown rifle that allows the users to swap barrels out and cartridges out. It's manufactured in Germany with great craftsmanship, but it is extremely expensive. The first version of the R8 was called the R93, which unfortunately was famous for blowing up in hunters' faces and disfiguring shooters. The R8 was redesigned to be safer than the R93, and I feel like Blaser accomplished that. I've shot several R8s, and I've never personally had an issue with them, but I have friends that own R8s, and they have constant issues. I also know several PHs in Africa that were given Blaser R8s for free, and they hate them. Unfortunately, the R8 is prone to reliability issues if they get really dirty. The R8 is also prone to user-induced function issues in stressful moments. The decocking safety design on it is really hard to use under stress for a lot of people. And if that bolt isn't cycled perfectly, you'll get misfires. PHs will candidly tell you that they see these issues with Blasers all the time. So, Blaser, you need to improve. And next, let's appease the fanboys here and go with Tikka. Tikka definitely makes the most beloved budget and mid-tier rifles in the world. I didn't really buy into this hype because I didn't like the T3 at all. And if you've seen my reviews on them, I kind of thought they were crappy rifles. I just saw way too many aluminum recoil lugs imprint and go south. And I personally went through 2 plastic bolt shrouds on my Tikka T3. Also, the ejection port was ridiculously small, and Tikka's twist rates were absolutely horrible. Honestly, the T3 was not a great rifle, and it was grossly overhyped. But the newer T3X changed my mind. Tikka actually listened to guys like me that aren't susceptible to hype, and they fixed a few things on the T3. The T3X now has a really nice steel recoil lug. It has a metal bolt shroud, a larger ejection port, a better stock, and they finally come in standard twist rates. The T3X also shoots great, especially if you bed the action into an aftermarket stock. You could buy aftermarket bottom metal and bed a T3X into an aftermarket stock, and honestly, have a better rifle than a Sako at the same price. Right now, I'm going to put Tikka in the doing things right tier because they're actually listening to people and making functional improvements. And hell, since we just did Tikka, we might as well throw Sako in the mix. Sako was Europe's flagship mass-produced hunting rifle for many years. Every detail was pure quality. The barrels always shot sub-MOA. They weren't picky about ammo, and they were designed for reliability over everything else. The old A-series rifles were legendary, and the 75 became Sako's most loved rifle by hunters all over the world, and the Sako 75 kind of solidified their reputation for accuracy and reliability. Sako then released the Model 85, which added controlled round feed, but the 85 had ejection issues and an absolutely horrible recoil lug design that resulted in inconsistent accuracy compared to the 75. But what really killed the 85 was when Sako quality began to decline as Beretta Holdings started to make more decisions involving the Sako arm of their company. And, customer service kind of went downhill as well. The newer Sako 90 that just came out a few years ago did solve the ejection issues that the 85 has. It has a better trigger in my opinion, and I really like the pick rail option, but it still uses that crappy recoil lug design, and they made top loading more difficult. Honestly, if you really like rifles made in Finland, just get a Tikka and bed it into an aftermarket stock. I think Tikka has improved to the point where the expensive Sako 90 doesn't make any sense to the consumer anymore. I'm putting Sako in the needs to improve category, even though this is going to piss a lot of people off. Because Sako just isn't a good value when they're more than twice the price of a Tikka T3X. And next, how about we pick on Kimber for a little bit here. Kimber is famous for copying great classic designs like the Model 70 or the 1911, and Kimber attempts to make better versions of those guns. I really wanted to like Kimber. I really did. Unfortunately, inconsistent quality hangs over Kimber like a dark cloud, and they just seem to refuse to acknowledge it or fix it. I own a Kimber Hunter, and I owned an 84M Montana, and both of those guns had nasty bores, oversized action screws that I actually had to grind down. They had misaligned holes for the scope bases. they were both riddled with quality issues that Kimber just never fixed. So, sorry, Kimber, I'm going to put you in the stay away tier right now. You guys have fallen from grace a long time ago. And let's do another American rifle manufacturer. Let's go with Montana. Montana is a small rifle manufacturer that machines their own Model 70 style receivers in-house. The Montana Rifle Company started having many quality issues when their former owner started tanking the company. But don't hold that against them, because the new owners have completely turned the company around, and Montana is currently making the best rifles that have ever been produced under the Montana Rifle Company name. Their barrels are way better than past barrels, and the actions are all now CNC machined from stainless steel, replacing the old cast receivers that the former owner used. But, and here's my criticism, they're still growing, and they really need some help gauging the pulse of their customers a little bit better. Most people I know that won't buy a Montana rifle just absolutely hate the stock design. Honestly, to be totally honest with you here, I also hate the Weatherby inspired California style stock. Using that stock design instead of a straight comb stock is a huge miss from Montana. Also, their dangerous game rifle is only chambered in 375 H&H, and since they already have a Magnum action right there, why not also chamber it in 416 Rem Mag and 458 Lot? I mean, this is a huge missed opportunity. I think, with the CZ 550 out of the picture, having that Montana rifle with a straight comb stock chambered in 458 Lot would be an instant hit. But regardless, Montana's rifles are fantastic. They're accurate. They're built to very high quality standards. They're reliable. They don't have the wood of a Parkwest rifle, but they are significantly cheaper. So I'm going to leave Montana in the would buy tier. And if they dump that stupid Weatherby style California stock and go to straight comb stocks, Montana would definitely be moving up in the tier list. Next, let's go over to Germany and talk about the Mauser for a second. These days, I have a real love-hate relationship with Mauser. The Mauser 98 is one of the most reliable and beautiful rifles you can currently buy. RIGBY and several other manufacturers actually use Mauser barreled actions on their rifles. And I think that if you're going to buy something made at the Mauser factory in Germany, it should say Mauser on the rifle. The 98 is very expensive, but it's really not a bad value for what you get, and it's going to hold its value. But here goes the bad part of Mauser. That cheap M18, on the other hand, should not have the Mauser name on it. It is the same rifle as the SAUER 100, and they should have left it under that name instead of the Mauser name. I'm not fond of many of the design elements of that rifle, the cheap stock, and I hate the plastic trigger on it. The Model 98 kind of counteracts the crappy M18, so I'll split the difference and I'll leave Mauser in the would buy category. So let's stay in Europe for a moment and talk about the CZ, or if you're outside the United States, the CZ. The CZ 550 was perhaps the best budget hunting rifle to ever be produced. It was a real double square bridge controlled round feed Mauser style action. The wood was always tasteful, they were always super beefy and tough, and they were reasonably accurate. Unfortunately, the tooling got old for the old 550, and rather than make new tooling, CZ decided to completely discontinue the 550 And they left us with the 557 push feed platform that just nobody liked. Then there was the nightmare release of the CZ600, where they ended up recalling all of them because they were dangerous. But they eliminated the barrel change feature on those and re-released the 600 again in 2022. But unfortunately, a lot of people complain about quality and accuracy issues with the 600. But the bright spot for CZ is their 457 rimfire rifles. The CZ 457 is an excellent rimfire platform that's just super reliable and accurate. You can also swap barrels and cartridges in a few minutes. I just love it. And honestly, the 457 is saving CZ's ass right now. So as a company, I'm going to put CZ in the needs to improve category. They really need to bring back something like the old 550 again. And now let's go back to the United States and talk about Fierce Firearms. There is no bigger disconnect between media influencers and writers and actual consumers than what you'll see with Fierce Firearms. Unfortunately, their marketing hype doesn't always match the products that they sell to people. Fierce originally had a pretty good reputation, but that kind of eroded as people started buying them due to really heavy marketing influences, especially on social media. You know, you run into accounts of barrels with no rifling, stuck bolts, horrible accuracy, and bad feeding problems. You know, it kind of became common. And it seems like Fierce rifle quality really is very hit or miss these days. I personally have one experience with Fierce, and I hate to tell you, it isn't very good. A local fan of the channel here in the Valley was having issues with his gun, and customer service was kind of blaming him and saying he was using bad ammunition. You know, and I told him to buy a few different boxes of ammo and meet me at my local range on Saturday. And he brought 2 boxes, and with both Hornady and Federal ammunition, we had to pound the bolt open with a rubber mallet every time he fired. So he sent that rifle back to Fierce, got it back months later, and the bolt would stick every few rounds after that. So I'm not sure they want to acknowledge problems or even fix them. So I'm going to put Fierce Firearms in the needs to improve category. And to tell you the truth, they're probably on the descent, you know, and they can just as easily end up in the stay away category right now. And it's a shame because, you know, I'm pulling for American firearm manufacturers. Let's go back to Japan now and talk about Howa. Howa builds its own rifles at their factory in Japan, where they've made rifles for 90 years now. The current Howa 1500 action is without a doubt the most feature-rich push-feed action made today, and it's cheap. The 1500 has a really beefy M16 style extractor, which is the only thing that comes close to the reliability of a Mauser claw style extractor. It also has an integrated machined recoil lug like a Mauser 98 or a Model 70. It also has a 3-position safety, so the rifle can be loaded, unloaded, and you can do chamber checks with the safety on. It also features a 1-piece forged bolt that vents gases better than most other rifles do. In my opinion, the Howa 1500 action is the best budget mass-produced push-feed action made today. It has everything a hunter wants for reliability and safety. They also come with pretty decent hammer-forged barrels and decent triggers. The only downside I see to the Howa 1500 is the cheap flimsy stocks that they come with, and their thin profile barrels on their lightweight models do have consistency issues as they heat up. So I'm not necessarily a fan of the cheap pencil barrel $500 rifles, but Howa does have a version with a HS Precision stock that is actually kind of nice, but that puts you in the $700 to $800 range if you go with that. Howa also sells barreled actions for people that want to build their own rifles, and I really wish more companies did that. I think Howa offers a lot of bang for the buck, so I'm going to put them in the doing things right category. Great value. Since we're talking about Howa, we might as well just throw Weatherby in there, because they have a connection with Howa. Weatherby has good and bad, but in my opinion, mostly bad. The Vanguard is good because it's just a Howa 1500. Unfortunately, it has that stupid California style stock that nobody likes, but it is a great rifle for the price, and the fit and finish is a small step above the regular Howa 1500. But their flagship rifle, the Mark V, I'm sorry, but I think it's overpriced and highly susceptible to quality issues. Mark V barrels are just average in my opinion for accuracy. I've seen a lot of poor bedding in those Mark V rifles, and I've seen several wood stocks crack right out of the factory. I mean, right away as soon as the user started shooting them. So not good for $3,000. Also, the new 307 seems to be experiencing magazine-related issues, so I'm going to put Weatherby in the needs to improve category here. Sorry, Weatherby, you need to improve. I guess we'll look at SAUER 2, and remember, this isn't SIG Sauer. This is SAUER and Soons, different company. I love a lot of their classic old rifles. I love their shotguns, but as far as modern hunting rifle goes, I mean, they make a lot of cheap crap. They love using those stupid European recoil lugs. I'm going to move them down there too. Sorry, guys. So let's talk about Savage next. Savage has always been a company in pursuit of cheap. I mean, honestly, let's be honest here, they've done that from the beginning. But they've had some winners and losers over the years. The Savage 110 is currently their best hunting rifle. The 110 has been in continuous production for over 60 years. It was initially a very high quality rifle at a good price, but unfortunately, it has been significantly cheapened over the years in order to hit a lower price point. The 110 is now a sad shadow of its former self, even though it does have a nice factory trigger. Now, the Savage Axis was kind of a joke from the start. When it came out, it was a $300 rifle with the quality of a $10 rifle. Then, Savage came out with the Axis 2 to address the issues that the original Axis had, while staying, just under $500. As soon as that Savage Axis 2 came out, rifles were firing when the safety lever was moved forward, and Savage refused to admit there was a problem. They basically pulled a Remington, and rather than acknowledging there's a problem and doing a recall, they redesigned the safety without admitting that the old ones had a problem. Regardless of that, the Axis 2 is currently known to have ejection and extraction issues, and the magazines really are hit or miss. Some Axis 2 rifles will be very accurate, but that isn't worth the reliability concerns that these rifles have. So Savage, to me, is in the stay away tier. And next, let's go back to America and talk about Springfield Armory. I recently got to shoot a Springfield Boundary rifle, chambered in .308 with a 20-inch fluted stainless steel barrel. And I brought some of my generic 308 loads from home with the 168 grain Sierra Match King that I use in my AR-10, and it shot 2 5-shot groups at a half minute of angle. The action was smooth and the rifle had no issues. I also really appreciate that Springfield made a rifle with a hinged floor plate. I just love that. The owner of the rifle also let me remove the action from the stock so I can inspect it. And it had a Trigger Tech trigger in it, which I was happy with. The stock had pillars in it, but it was not glass bedded. The bolt also had a Savage style ball and detent extractor. You know, for a rifle over $2,000, I expected bedding or a chassis and a better extractor, to tell you the truth. But the rifle shot and functioned great, and the feel and the balance of that Springfield Boundary rifle was just perfect. So I'm going to leave Springfield here in the would buy tier, even though I think there is either room for improvement or they need to pursue maybe a lower price point. One more hunting rifle manufacturer left on the board, and that's Seekins Precision. I've been a fan of Seekins products for many years. I mean, I've used their rings, bases, bottom metal, and last year I actually got a chance to shoot and inspect a Havoc PH2 rifle. It just checked all the boxes. It had an M16 style extractor. The glass bedding job was absolutely perfect, and I loved the bolt head design on it. It shot just as good as any custom hunting rifle would have, in my opinion. I understand that Seekins now offers a quick change barrel option for the same rifle, but honestly, I haven't handled one of those yet, so I can't comment on them. But I can say that there's a lot of Seekins rifles out in circulation right now. And to tell you the truth, I've never heard one complaint about them, which is saying something. I also know that Seekins customer service is the best. All of their products have a no questions asked warranty. So you're not going to get dicked around by Seekins if you're not happy or you have an issue. I will admit though, Seekins rifles are geared more towards the long range shooting and hunting crowd or the tactical crowd. But for $1,800, I don't think it's possible to find another rifle built like this with consistent quality. Seekins might be the best value in this entire video, so I'm making them top tier. Most of you out there are not going to like this video because I went against your confirmation bias. But, you know, tough titties, this is my list. You make your own. And, you know, to really mess with the triggered masses out there due to this video, they won't be able to write their clever 1,000-word rebuttal because I hid the comments. You'll notice that only 2 hunting rifles made the top tier in this video. One makes a classic controlled round feed action bedded into a hand-checkered, gorgeous piece of walnut. And the other one makes a modern cutting-edge rifle full of every uber tactical thing that a 21st century hunter can ever ask for. Both rifles are well designed, very well executed, and the quality on those rifles is consistently high. When you look at everything that went into their production, you could clearly see value in it, even though they're expensive. So congratulations to Parkwest Arms and Seekins Precision. I'm a very picky guy with absolutely no brand loyalty or sponsors, and you impress me. As you saw, I found fault with most manufacturers out there, even the ones that sell very expensive hunting rifles. So hopefully they improve. Well, I want to thank you for watching this video, and as always, good hunting.